You see what I sent?
To turn it over to Superintendent Spence.
We'll start with a COVID-19 update from Dr. Whitehead.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So our update today, I started with the slide that I showed you last month that is now the new graphic to show the level of community transmission, and Coastal Health District is still in the green for all counties. And Glen County specifically has a low transmission rate at this time. The next slide shows you the across time school-age children graph, and the bottom being just since January, and you can see that ending April 30th, there were 3 total school-age children cases documented for Glen County for last week. Also, within last week, this shows you just the age bands and the number of cases that were documented for that week ending on April 30th. And then we move to the state chart that is populated for the state, but Glen County specifically. The first chart being just a breakout from April till May. You can see the lower numbers there. On the 4th, there were 4 confirmed cases in Glen County, and our 7-day moving average is 7.1 at this time. The remaining graphs before we get to our school graph are what we've looked at historically since this data started being represented on the website. These are now archived reports, so they stopped updating them as of April 14th. And this shows the transmission through April 14th, and it was on a downward trend at that time. The next slide was a 7-day rolling average that we've looked at over time. Again, it was archived as of April 14th and no longer updated beyond that time. And the percentage of positive tests has also been an archived data point. So that was last updated April 8th. The next slide is our district slide from last Friday, and as of today, we have 1 case that is active as of today at a different location, but so our posting will go up again tomorrow as it has been shared each week. So I don't know if you have any questions about where we are with everything. These numbers are obviously where we would, like to see them on this low side of things, but I can tell you that the flu is making its way around. And with testing starting, we are seeing an upswing in flu activity at the same time. So our schools are definitely dealing with an outbreak of different sections of the flu showing up.
Just as an aside, and I know how we handle it normally, but what do we do for students? I mean, I know we're right in the middle of testing, or testing just started. How do we handle that when kids are out? And are they exempt if they're not in in 6th or 8th grade, or how does that work to make up those tests?
So we operate on what we call a rolling makeup window. So as soon as they come back into school, if they are able to return during the testing window, which will run through May 18th,
Right.
then they'll make up their tests at the time
Okay.
they return.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Whitehead?
Thank you, ma'am.
You want to move down
Thank
to
you. Yes, sir.
contract 3A?
3A for the Corwin contracts. Our L4 Georgia grant schools include Glen Academy for this last award that we received. And they have been working on a lot of different projects with the grant funds, which are really neat to watch roll out. One of the things that Mrs. Elam has worked on for their professional learning plan for next year is to contract with Karen Flores, who is a consultant with Corwin. We've had her in the district for several other school sites. That contract, she is looking to do days with the science department and days with the social studies department, specific to high-impact strategies for those content areas, and a focus on that standards-based classroom. So the total for those two exceeded the threshold, so I wanted to bring those to you to see if you had any questions or anything before approval of those contracts. And Mr. Lakin has had a chance to review the Corwin contracts. I think they now actually have a Glen County template based on his feedback from.
Really?
Yes. So when we are getting additional information from them, they are clear to point out that they are sending the version that was approved from Glen County. So,
We'll never hear the end of that.
yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Whitehead?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip to Ms. Seals now because we have guests from the college, so I want Ms. Seals to go ahead and present the employee education program. And that is E1.
Good evening.
You
I'm excited to present to you the Glen County Schools Teacher Pipeline Program. And as you can see up there, it's basically our mission to help grow a high-quality, highly diverse pool of teachers who will be committed to educating Glen County School students. And there are a couple of ways that we're looking to do this in the coming year. The first one, and I'm so excited to have Dr. Amy Sneed and Dr. Jason Humphreys here with me from the College of Coastal Georgia. And with this program, it's an opportunity for currently employed paraprofessionals and other classified staff to earn a teaching certificate and teaching degree with the College of Coastal Georgia while continuing to be employed with the Glen County Schools. Qualifications, of course, you have to currently be a full-time employee, preferably a paraprofessional. Earning a teacher certification would be considered a promotion. And then college credits are preferred. So most of our paraprofessionals have at least an associate's degree. If not, they have some other type of college credit, and that would definitely push them to the head of the list of those to be considered. General information includes a partnership with the College of Coastal Georgia, which we're excited to have with them, and they will be offering certain things and to support the tuition that we would be paying from our general fund. And so if either one of you would like to speak to what the college would be doing.
Sure, happy to. Thank you all for the ability to do this partnership with you all. The college is willing to commit to a $300 per student per semester book scholarship to help with some of those expenses. Being able to waive some of our institutional fees would be helpful there too. Offering the participants an opportunity for prior learning assessment to get some credit for the experiences that they've already had in the classroom will cut down on their time to degree as well. Also, some of our special VIP treatment for those students coming in through the admissions financial aid process as well. We're happy to do that as part of this partnership.
Thank you. Another leg of this on the next slide is our paraprofessional internship employment. Many times our paraprofessionals have had to resign from their positions as paraprofessionals in order to student teach. And I know I've talked to several of you about that before, and we want them to come back and teach in Glen County, asking or having them required to leave us or resign from us just doesn't, it seems counterintuitive. I mean, it's just going against what we need. And so we have worked out a way to be able to support those paraprofessionals who are student teaching by working with their site principals to accommodate their schedule for student teaching if their college will allow. The holdup in the past has been the colleges. It hasn't been us. It's been the colleges. And so many of our colleges are recognizing the shortage of teachers and are willing to support the teacher candidates in doing that. So we're able to do that. We have to collaborate with the principal, of course, because we don't want our students who are in the classrooms to go without the support that they need. But in working with them, we're able to support those paraprofessionals in getting their teaching certification. Any questions about that?
That makes sense though, because you talk to any parapro, they student teach every day, right? I mean,
That's
so
exactly
they do
right.
the job. So if there's any way we can get them credit, I know it's been an issue for a long time, so
Yes.
let us know what we can do to help.
Thank you. And the last leg is the Georgia TAP support, and this is a brand new opportunity as well. This is an opportunity for us to provide support with tuition for currently employed teachers who are currently enrolled in the Georgia TAP program. Georgia TAP is a way for teachers who are becoming teachers through the alternative pathway. This is a way for them to earn a certification. So our local First District RESA has a program, and they go through that. They have to apply. They have to meet certain criteria in order to get it, in order to get into that program. The cost of that program is typically $6,000 per person. And so because of CARES Act, we're able to support those teachers in this endeavor and supporting them to become fully certified while serving in our district. They have to, of course, maintain employment with us, but this is a great way. CARES Act gives us an opportunity to support that because of the teacher shortage and the burnout that we're having with teachers. Any questions about those three items?
I
So-
just want to
Go
say
ahead. Go ahead,
thanks.
sorry.
I'm sorry, because this has been a struggle for at least 2 years, maybe 3, and we've seen it coming, but y'all have come up with creative ways to try to help alleviate the situation in Glen County, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we'll be bringing an MOU to you guys next month to sign with the college, and hopefully we get this program up and coming real fast.
It also gives the parapros who are interested in being promoted the opportunity to do so and continue their lifestyle without suffering.
That's exactly right. And also, too, when you look at the data, our paraprofessionals and people who already currently work for our school system, they already know our students. They know our community. We do not have to bring them from somewhere. They know what we have here, and they love our students. Many of our paraprofessionals are already doing a lot of that work in the classroom every single day to help support instruction, support teachers in the classroom. And many of them, from my principal's perspective, many of them end up becoming great teachers. So it's a great opportunity. Mr. Hosey?
I'm sorry if this has been asked and answered, but as we talk about CARES Act funds, and we've talked about that a lot in the last couple of years, obviously, is there like a deadline on those expenditures? So for instance, if we're going to set aside money for this program, can we set aside, $200,000, and if it takes us 10 years to support that many teachers, can we do that, or has it got to be within a couple of years or whatever?
I'm pretty sure it has to be within a couple of years, by
Okay.
2024. Yeah, it has to be spent out by 2024.
Fall of 2024.
Wow.
But we've been creative with other ways
Yes,
of,
sir.
using general fund money, using CARES Act for other things to offset those expenses. So I know y'all will, but I couldn't remember what the deadline was on those funds. Thank you.
How long do we think it would take to get the program up and running?
We're hoping to start it by the fall. We already have many of the transcripts in our office already, so that will help the college be able to look and assess where those students will be and where they are. As we've gone around to different schools, paraprofessionals have stopped us to say, hey, I'm in college right now. I'm at the College of Coastal Georgia online, or I'm at Georgia Southern online. So many of them are already in college, so we can use those particular transcripts that we have already so that the college can look at them. I'll be working with people in my department to really assess those to see where they are, because of course some of them are going to be at different places. And we know that, so that's why we're really starting with those who have the most college credit to be able to turn them out a lot quicker. than those who may not have as much college credit.
So you're saying fall of 2022,
2022.
they'll start, and this money has to be, so they have to be through with the program by
No,
24?
we're gonna,
No.
this is not something that we
This
wanna
is ju-
drop.
yeah,
We
we'd
got this
like to
from,
continue.
Bleckley County is doing this.
So we're gonna continue even
Yeah.
after the CARES money?
And
Okay.
they told me the amount of money that they were spending on this every year, and we're 5 times bigger than them, and so I think we spend about 5 times as much as them, which is a reasonable cost.
Okay.
We can do this. This is something I want to continue.
I was just trying to make sure they didn't have to be through in that
No,
2-year
no.
window
We're just
frame
using CARES Act money now
to
because it's
initiate
available.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and employee turnover costs money too, right? So, I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
if you can
Oh,
keep
yes.
those people, you know, and keep the people that are already
Yes.
trained here, not have the 10%
Yes, sir.
turnover we have every year to improve that number, that'll pay for itself too.
Yes, sir. I believe it will.
Sure. Okay,
When
thank
can you have us the MOU? When did you say you could have us
We'll
the
have it for
MOU?
next board meeting.
Tuesday? Okay.
No. The
Next
work
The
session.
next, not Tuesday, but
Gotcha.
the next.
June board meeting.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Any more questions? Thank you for your
Thank you.
support.
Thank y'all for being here.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
All right, Ms. Preston?
Okay. Chris, pull up. Can you turn it? Okay. And I scan it in because of the legal paper.
Turn
Anyway. Okay, so the only real major change since the last update is the state funds for next year. That's in yellow. The initial estimates came out for next year, except for the transportation allotment. So I've done a conservative estimate. I feel like it's going to be higher, a little bit higher than that, but I used our current allotment with the initial allotment for QVE to calculate what we're going to get. So that's why that's in yellow. So, you know, basically, the biggest contributing factor to that increase for us is the state is funding $2,000 for every teacher, and that goes into the funding formula. So even though you're paying it out on the salary side, it gets included in the revenue side. That is really the only other change. And the attachments that I put with the packet basically back up all the numbers that we've talked about. I've left I haven't heard from the tax assessor again since the initial allotment he gave me a month ago, but he said it wasn't final. So I left it at 4% increase for property values, which is probably conservative because the 5-year average is 3.9. And you all know, as you know, things have been selling like hotcakes around here. So I have a feeling that's probably conservative. And I did bump up the collection rate to 99%. And the millage rate is still the same until we do get the actual digest and talk about what we want to do with the millage rate, if you want to leave it the same or see what the rollback rate is. Then the other attachment is the QBE that we just talked about. And I've included the cost of the state raise attachment again. There's so many different things being thrown at our employees. They're kind of confused because today we paid out the $2,000 that the governor gave everybody in the system. May the 5th, we paid that. So that's a one-time $2,000. But then next year, the state's working in the $2,000 for the teachers, and they're adjusting how they fund the drivers. So the cost of the general fund cost, they're also doing food and nutrition, but that's not general fund. So that total cost to us is about $2.8 million, which is offset by the $2 million estimated revenue right there. Then we've talked about local raises. We looked at the salary surveys and decided that we needed to be comparable, at least in the top 3 within First District RESA, and we decided to adjust pretty much every salary scale we have, and it depends on which salary scale it is as to what the amount is. Keep going.
Keep going, Chris.
One more. So the teachers will get $1,300. Food service and drivers will get $2,500. Pairs will get $3,000. All other staff, the list goes down. That's the 4th column. gets $650, maintenance is $725, custodian and bus aides is $2,000. And the total cost of that to the general fund is $3.5 million. All of these adjustments get all of our salary scales within the top three within RESA. It also helps with the competitiveness of starting salaries in the area. You know, like you've got McDonald's paying $15 an hour. And so this is going to help our lower end salary starting pay also. And then the next attachment is the 15% cap that we talk about. And I mentioned to you in April, you know, in our current budget, we have budgeted $5.5 million to transfer into local capital projects because of the 15% cap rule. And as you can see, this calculation actually, 5.5 is a little low, but I did not include that in the budget again for next year. Because you can always transfer that at the end of the year, and I kind of wanted to wait to see where we ended up at the end of this year. Then the last sheet is what I would like permission for on Tuesday to put in the newspaper 2 weeks prior to adoption on June the 7th. And really the only number that's going to change is the highlighted, that's the state fund, the QBE. I should get that bus allotment before this goes in the paper, but if I don't, it'll just be a budget amendment to next year to reflect what we're actually getting. So on Tuesday, I have it as a proposed action item to approve, allow me to put a tentative consolidated budget in the paper 2 weeks prior to adoption. Are there any questions on the budget? Any problems with advertising?
No, I have a question. When
Okay.
we do the pay increase across the board for
Yes.
all the employees, and I know we have talked about this before, the long-term substitute teachers.
We have actually adjusted those rates. I don't have them on hand, but.
Okay, but they have been adjusted.
Yeah, they will be adjusted next school year, yes.
Okay.
Because they also needed to be in the top three, and some of them were a little low too.
Okay.
But I don't have the specifics on that, but
Thank you.
I can get you that.
Thank you.
Can you just add that to that sheet or no? I guess that's not a raise, I guess.
Yeah, it gets kind of confusing because subs feel like they are employees, but they're day-to-day temporary, so they're not considered full-time or employees that qualify for benefits. So a lot of times they, you know.
But the
feel left
long-term
out.
subs, are they under different contracts since they,
They're not under contract.
well, I'm talking about under, because if they agree to be a long-term sub, and that's, 6 weeks or longer?
10 days.
10 days or longer.
Oh,
We
10 days?
we pay them at a higher rate if they're 10 days or longer.
But they're
We have a
still
long-term
temporary, they
sub
don't.
rate. But it's
Okay,
still
yeah,
a
I thought it was
temporary
longer than 10
situation.
days. I thought long-term was a little bit longer than 10 days, okay.
No, once 10 days or more.
Right, but
So
I'm
if you
just saying,
commit
I
to
thought, I was under the impression when they said long-term, they got like a 6 week, they know they're gonna be in that class, not 10
Could
days.
be.
It could be,
depends on-
yes,
if the
I understand it
teacher
could, yeah.
The rate
goes
goes
out.
up after they serve their 10th day in a row.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what,
After the
okay.
teacher goes, if the teacher goes out at the beginning of the semester, then yes, they have a job for the semester.
For the entire semester, okay.
Mhm.
I know we have to wait on the digest to come back before we make the decision, but,
Yeah.
a mill is worth about 5 million right now, is that? I didn't-
5 million, yeah.
I think going to the rollback rate, just think historically might be a little aggressive, but I still don't want to look at it at least a quarter mil reduction. I mean, 1.25 or something like that, and we're transferring 5.5 to a capital projects account.
Yeah.
I think we still want to, I do want to take a look at it anyway when we get
Yeah.
the digest to see how it comes back. Because I think you're right. I think it's probably going to be a little bit better than what
Yeah.
we're
And
estimating.
unfortunately, it's a catch-22 because, you know how hard it is to raise that mill's rate back
Sure, I
up.
understand.
It's like squeezing blood out of a
And
turnip.
I'll say it's probably a little bit overdue, just in my opinion, but, and I know, given the current economic climate that it's touchy, and I understand
Well,
that, but I
And-
still
and
think it's time to look at it.
I agree, but I don't in that if you look at the second page of my handout, it's a historical, has historical figures of the digest, and we're projected, if we use 4%, to be at 5.2. The highest value we were at was back in 2009, so we're not even where we were prior to recession as far as the value of digest. And we've had the same millage rate, even though the millage rate went down to $4 billion. 3.9 was the lowest in 2014, and we rolled back that after that year.
Right.
And we've kept the same for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this would be 9 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been conservative, in my opinion, when times were bad, because we did cut out a lot of programs during that recession and have not, are slowly starting to add them back. Horizon Academy would be one.
Sure.
But anyway, it's a hard decision to make, but we'll wait till August.
I'm with Mike on it, though, for sure. I think it is overdue. We have consistently, it seems like we're over 20 million to 25 million, so it's worth looking at is what all I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
But I agree, we have held strong during the low times as well and not raised, so,
Yeah,
but it's worth looking at.
yeah, we raised it once during the middle of the recession.
Right.
Any other questions for Ms. Preston? We'll move on to March.
Okay.
There'll be somebody at the budget hearing if we raise it. I promise.
At the millage right here,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the, kind of what worries me is that rollback rate's gonna be pretty significant because the
I'm
digest is increasing
not
so fast.
advocating. I mean, we always look at it. I think it's fine to, as an
Yeah.
exercise to look at, but it's gonna be a
Yeah.
little too aggressive probably, so.
And even if you roll it back a little bit, not the whole millage rate, you still have to have your public hearings.
Right.
And say you're raising taxes.
Sure.
March, for March, there was only one budget amendment that affected the total revenue or expenditure of the general fund, and that was an increase to the QBE for the midterm allotment. Like I told you last April, they did away with the austerity reduction in this budget year, but we also took a hit on the local fair share, so we got some back and we got some taken away. So the net of that was 1.8. The year-to-date revenues in March are 89.2%. Local tax receipts were a little over 4 million. Year-to-date expenses are at 71.8, and we're 75% through the year. So, you know, again, I've been saying this all along with with our unfilled positions and the ability to use CARES Act, we're going to be saving money again this school year, trailing behind. And this is old news. The February sales tax was received in March at 2.4, which is 28% higher than last March. It's just unbelievable. Year-to-date collections are 14.76% higher than last fiscal year. And I think our collections for this month was 2.9? 2.9.
2.9.
So we definitely will collect everything, I think, before the end. Hopefully it'll be at the beginning of a quarter.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Griner, software update.
Yes, sir. Just an update as we continue to move toward a new financial management solution. I've got just a brief PowerPoint. It's up at the top. Yeah, it's up at the top. There we go. Perfect. We did, as I mentioned last month, we had the vendor demonstrations on April 21st for one vendor, and then April 27th, 28th for the other vendor. I think those went well. We had a lot of great questions from the team, a lot of good discussion, had some follow-up questions that we'll be getting with the vendors about over the next week or so. We held a debrief meeting after each vendor demonstration. What I've learned throughout my career is it's better to talk about it kind of a day or two after, because if you wait a week, it's gone. So then you see the other demo, then you completely forgot the other one. So we did that as a team. We've got site visits scheduled next week, May 10th, at Bullitt County, who runs one of the software versions we looked at, and then Bryan County, who runs the other, on May the 11th. So we'll probably spend 2 to 3 hours, get a divide up, probably take 9 or 10 people with us, different departments. We're taking HR, finance, purchasing, just kind of covered payroll, accounts payable, kind of covered everything. Going to sit and talk with their teams, ask them really honestly, you know, how do you use it day to day, what support. To me, support is huge. What kind of support do you get? If you have a new product development, how responsive are they to, working with you, possibly add that to the software if it's something. So those are some of the questions we ask in the demos, but honestly, when you have a sales pitch, for lack of a better term, I'd rather go to an actual school. And both of those schools have been running the software for a long time, so I think that'll be good to ask questions of. Once we do that, we'll spend the next 2 weeks, roughly, kind of going through the evaluation process, completing the evaluation rubric, and then come back to y'all on June the 2nd with a recommendation with a lot of documentation. I've asked the team, as many can be here that night too, because I think it's better than hearing just one voice mine. I think it would be good to have, representation from each department as well, once we get to that, to kind of chime in if y'all have questions, where it's not just me that y'all hear. So, and then we hope to, June the 7th, approve a vendor and move through the process. Definitely looking at running parallel. That came up during the demos. I heard that, the first time I presented this, that we want to run parallel, so that's something we've talked, about in those demonstrations, and that's not going to be a problem to run parallel, for several months till we get to that point. So we're very excited. I think the team's very excited about the opportunity. There's always that kind of, you're going to something different, but I really sense the excitement as we move towards a new software solution. So I've been real, I think we put together a good team and been real impressed with the conversations we've had related to it. So.
In the demonstration presentations, did they indicate what their implementation support is? Are they on site? How does that work?
To be honest, one did not go over that. I felt like one vendor did 1 day, one did 2 days. I felt like the one that did 2 days, we spent more time going through stuff, and they covered implementation. They would be here with us. Actually, what we were impressed with that is they'll actually come and sit and learn what we're doing now. So they'll sit down with each employee group and say, how do you do it now? And they may go, ooh, we can craft the software to do that for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. We need to ask the question to the other vendor, to be fair. They just didn't cover it in the demonstration.
Right.
So that's huge, and it would be on site. They said they did a lot of remote during the pandemic, and they prefer to be on site. And we've asked for it to be on site. I don't want to do virtual. Some of it is going to be back room where they're kind of putting the modules together for us. I understand that. But the training implementation needs to be on site. So we made that clear in the demonstrations.
And I know Bullock and Bryan have been running the systems for a while, but if there's anybody there that underwent the implementation, there are also good resources to be able to say, these were the pitfalls, this is what we learned, this is what we would do differently.
Right.
In working with the vendors. So that's all helpful, probably, to gather that information.
It is, and the CFO in Bullock has been there for a while. Actually, the superintendent in Bullock was the CFO. Now he's the superintendent in Bullock. So the CFO has also been there a while. I think he's been on this. I'm almost thinking we had that conversation so long ago, but I think he was there when they implemented, the software. I know in Bryan County, the CFO there has run the software we're looking at. She's been on this software, not in Bryan County, but this is like her 3rd or 4th year. She's about to retire, but she's 99. She's been using this software.
Sure. So
She actually was one of the first systems in the state of Georgia to go with this software, and they converted off an AS400. So I think her knowledge would be, So
absolutely.
I think, and then I encouraged in our last debrief session, I've got a list of all the school districts running both softwares. I encouraged HR to find reach out to those, especially on the HR side, reach out to the HR director there and ask them, and I think that was, I knew that was very well received, so I think we'll reach out to some other districts. And they gave us reference lists. I'm going to call districts that aren't on their reference list.
That's smart, yes.
And honestly, to be fair, they try to give us references that were similar in size to us. So that's either good or bad. There are some districts we can call close to us that we can ask some more questions as well.
Sure. The processes are the same, no matter the quantity in a lot of cases, so.
Right, and they may not be running all the modules. Our desire is to run as many modules as possible and have a fully integrated system. I know Dr. Spence has said that several times, and that's our desire as well. I think it runs better when it's all talking to each other and it's the same software talking, and then if you run into issues, it's just easier to have the support on that side.
Right. Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Griner? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Dimsdale, Mr. Blackerby is not able to make it tonight, and so Mr. Dimsdale will be standing in for him. And we have some other folks in case you have questions.
Right. Probably goes a little bit of introduction there. I'm
I have 3 weeks of project knowledge to this point, so I have some very detailed notes and a wealth of 3 weeks of knowledge, but it's very fortunate that I have lots of project knowledge, present and past, in Dwayne Bradham and John Tootin. It looks like Gary Sanders has come in as well, so we've got people to help us out if we run into those questions. We'll start off, just jump in and talk about the current projects. Our first project that we have listed, these are 2 eSPLOST 3 projects that are just finishing up. Our new Altama Elementary School, it's really mostly complete. Last month, I think it was reported that they were working on the punch list. There were a couple of items that were found that needed to be corrected. One of those was a roof issue, a couple of roof issues, and those are minor, and those corrections are being made right now, and a final payment will not be made until after those corrections have been completed. All right, our next project is the Glen Academy Gym Edition, and I'm sure that as you probably drove in this evening, you may have seen continued progress there. The project is on schedule, and let me say this too. This is something that's been nice to come into, is that the projects overall here have been relatively on schedule, and given the supply chain issues and things like that have just affected everybody, it's pretty impressive that these projects are making the progress that they are. So that's my kudos to some of the contractors and their professionalism and working with them. It's been nice so far. So what the concentration at the GA Gym is right now is to get that all sealed up. We're going to get it climatized. That's the focus of the effort right now. I know that they're getting ready to set those windows in the next few weeks in the gym area. And once that gets done, they'll be able to bring in some of the flooring material that has to climatize before it can go into the gym. So it has to sit, and we have to make sure the humidity is right and that kind of thing. So that's our focus right now. Spoke with them today. They said everything is on schedule. St. Simon's Elementary School. Right now, if you happen to drive by there, you're seeing the brick go up on the building. It's a pretty, when you get to that stage, it's when you really start to see some progress. The brick matches very well, and they are making really good progress. The crane is going to be on site tomorrow to place the 2 HVAC systems on, or I'm sorry, there may be more than that, but the HVAC units will be placed on the roof tomorrow. There is one concern. This is one thing that I've noticed with this contractor, is that they are very proactive in their ordering of materials. Their materials have been ordered very early in the process, but they are having problems with this. It's supposed to arrive somewhere between October and January, and it's main switch gear, and it's one piece of equipment that we do not have a definite date that it will be here. Okay, so if that did not make it by November of this year, then that could cause scheduling issues. But as of right now, it looks like that's going to move forward. So it still looks good. They just can't, the window now is October to January, but we need to know by November. So we're hoping that the middle of the window will be enough time for them to get that answer for us. Needwood Mill renovations, the first and second wings are completed and occupied, with the exception of minor work in the restrooms. The third wing renovation will begin after state testing, and I do want to just make a quick comment about how gracious all parties have been in being able to take their schedules and move around to make us stay on schedule as far as construction is concerned. It's been nice to work with both the contractors and the administrators and have both sides work to make things happen, so that we can have completion when we plan. Cafeteria, gym, and administrative spaces in that building will be done during the summer. And of course, our kitchen renovations, as mentioned last work session, are planned for 2023 in that project. Golden Isles Elementary renovations. Currently, the classroom and administrative areas will be completed and ready for reoccupation by June 5th. So that's when the administrators and everybody would make their way back over. The remaining work will be completed in the kitchen and the gym. That's where the concentration is now, those two areas, and that school should be completed and ready to open and on time for school next year. Okay. Oglethorpe Elementary School renovations. 2 wings are completed and occupied. The 3rd wing renovation will begin during the summer. That's a little bit of a change. We had planned on starting right after testing, but due to some scheduling, we've kind of switched some rooms around that would be less disruptive for some makeup testing, things like that, and also some events that are happening at the school. And so now we're going to concentrate on cafeteria, gym, and administrative spaces. They'll be done during the summer as well. We're going to concentrate on the main corridor, the gym, music, art, and computer rooms for after testing. And that'll help us with less disruption for the students and help us to move forward and still stay on schedule. The kitchen renovations are the same timeline as it is for Needwood. Those will be done in the summer of 2023. The Glen Academy existing gym renovations. Last month, I think, may have been the first time, I'm not sure if John, right behind me. John, I think you spoke about this last week. Was that the first time that was presented as far as the plan for the existing GA gym renovations?
I think the board was generally aware of it, but that's the first time that we had a sequence of events and that we had a real plan.
Okay. Well, the plan at this point is similar to what was presented last work session, which was that the schedule for summer work is being considered right now. The hope is to install a new sound system, handrails at the aisles, and new lighting over the bleachers prior to basketball season. And then other renovations will happen after basketball season, and those will include the locker rooms and other aspects of that.
Yeah, the rest of the entire building, there's underfloor plumbing work a good bit that needs to be done to wrap the old showers, install new showers, things like that. And so I think the general plan, and we need to resolve this specifically with the staff, is to take a break after the basketball season starts, which is what we did with the heating and air conditioning at the addition. And then when basketball season ends, then move activities into the new gym and concentrate on that building so that it's finished, the remainder of the renovation prior to school year
23. FY 24.
So that's
All
the
right.
plan.
Okay, thank you. And our last item is the Glen Academy Annex building, and that was presented to you last work session that there were some problems that were reported by staff of the floors. And I think right as these sessions was just the same, maybe even the day or the day prior, is when the inspection report came back last time. And so now we've had a chance to take a look at the inspection report. Mr. Blackerby just emailed me today and said he originally thought that this was a project that they could hold off on, but based on the report, he feels that it's a better course of action and that we start that project this summer as well. Okay. The other item we have, I think, on the agenda is the GOOD report. And not to go too much into it, but yeah, just the work session summary. If you'll turn to page, all of those projects, I just kind of went over the details of what was happening with each of those. But if you'll go to page 6, this is something that Mike asked that we point out, and I think that Andrea just mentioned this as well, but this will just give you some numbers to look at. The E-Splosh continues to be above projection and is nearly, probably over $400,000 above what it was last year for the last month that was reported, which was March, I think, is that right? Okay. So there's your numbers. The red line represents what the actual receipts are. The blue line is last year, and then the black line at the bottom is the projected. So that's kind of where we are as far as that's concerned as well. All right.
Any questions for Mr. Dimsdale or the other?
Yeah,
folks
just
here?
a couple real quick. One is, we mentioned some gym renovations at some of the elementary schools. Is there gym renovation for Needwood at all? Is there anything going on there? I couldn't remember. We didn't mention it. I don't remember if there was something on there for Needwood or not.
Yes, Needwood, well, I have it listed as cafeteria, gym, and administrative spaces will be done during the summer. Is it?
And that sort of thing. And
Right.
also there's the audio-visual.
Right. And the second question, what exactly does the report say about the Annex building? What's the issue at the Annex building?
Floor sinking.
Okay,
It's primarily termite damage.
okay.
Over the years and fairly extensive. My concept is that the crawl space is very limited in that building. It's very shallow, so it's very difficult to work from underneath. Of course, there's a lot of termite damage on the subfloor as well, the original subfloor. And it's then had layers of flooring above. I think we go a room at a time, selectively remove the flooring in the areas most heavily damaged, which tend to be around the perimeter. Some of the joists have sawn 2-inch wide, full 2-inch wide, about 15-inch deep joists that probably date from the 1880s. And we need to examine that. But the good news is that I think we can isolate one room at a time. In an email I sent today, I suggested we start at the corridor, so that the corridor gets done this summer for sure, and you've got a place to access the classrooms. And then I think we can isolate one classroom at a time. And I think there are advantages to that, in that you'll have 5 classrooms for use. There are 6 classrooms, 6 regular classrooms in that building, so you'll have 5 for use at any one time. And I can't predict yet how quickly that will go in terms of, Mike asked the question, could it be done this summer? And the answer is, I'm not sure, but I think it's a safer course to go one room at a time. And then when school starts again, to schedule the remaining work on after school hours, Saturdays, holidays. But by the time we do one, I think we'll understand the situation well enough to be able to project reasonable costs and schedule. So that's the way I would evaluate it.
I assume that Glen Academy's campus is probably one of the only campuses we have to really worry about, termites and things like that. Or what are we doing for prevention? Like, for instance, at the historic building, what are we doing at our campuses for that? And secondly, is there any type of bond or insurance that helps cover any of this cost with GSBA or anything? That's happened before. I know when the building got struck by lightning, I know we had, and so we didn't discover that then, Mr. Tootin. It was just, I guess we mainly redid the bottom floors because of water damage from, it being, the fire being put out. Okay, so we didn't notice any damage at that time. I don't remember how many years ago was that. I mean, was that
It's been about
12, 15? I don't know how long.
15.
Yeah,
It was 2004.
yeah,
It's been 17 or 18.
right,
Dwayne, do you know what's going on?
okay.
Of course, I don't have great experience with termite bonds, but generally that's a difficult thing to cash in on, I think. But,
Sure.
At any rate, the work that we designed for you, you have termite bonds that are delivered. Whether or not they're renewed and kept for long periods of time, I would not know that information, but I assume they are.
Is that how we discovered it, through a regular inspection, a yearly inspection, or how often does that happen?
At that building?
Yes, sir.
No, we had a work order come in, and we acted on it.
Of course, the other thing I would point out that the photograph showed is that over the years, there has been damage, so probably this has gone on off and on for a fairly lengthy time, because they're kind of temporary on floor. The good news is that there's a foundation wall around each of the rooms, so that this floor is not directly supporting the walls above. The foundation, masonry foundations around the perimeter of each room with a basic support for the building. So once we get one floor uncovered, I think it'll be clear how to stabilize everything and get a new flooring system. And I have begun thinking about what that would be, but there are options other than wood that might serve the wood's interest long term. We put metal floor joists, for example, and we could put metal deck and a lightweight concrete flooring system, perhaps, and that would be something that would be not subject to future termite damage.
Okay, so to circle back, like what, is there a plan to go and inspect all the buildings now, because we had an issue there, or like the historic building, when's the last time it was inspected for termites or whatever? Is it yearly, is it twice a year, is it?
Periodically go in all, we go in all of them and look through them. And sometimes you'll see evidence and we'll act on it.
I mean, do we have, at all our trades, is there somebody specifically that's set aside that's trained in that type of thing? Like we have HVAC people too, or?
Yeah, we have carpenters,
Okay.
they know the signs to look for.
Okay.
Good news about some of the older buildings, of course, Pratt building was renovated.
Right.
And we removed a lot of old termite damage when that was done. Sidney Lanier building does not have a wood floor, it has a steel frame flooring
Right.
system with very long masonry. The historic building, we poured a concrete slab underneath it, and it should be easy, and there are lights underneath there, so it should be easy to access that. And so I don't have any current information about what we call the Glen Academy building, so that would be the one that I would not know anything about this condition.
Not to beat a dead horse, but we do have a termite bond, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, if we have a termite bond, like I've got one on my house, they come every year, they inspect it.
And they do.
And if you find active termites, which I'm assuming we found active termites, then they would pay for the repairs. That's how, unfortunately, I've dealt with it before, but that's how my termite company did it. That's what I think was what you're alluding to a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and my point is we're spending a bunch of money on other stuff, and we just made $2.9 million last month at East Plus, so let's not get a termite inspection done on these historic buildings that we spend a lot of money to move to campus and everything else. I mean, it sounds like it's something simple. I know we have carpenters that can inspect, but I would rather hold somebody else accountable that has a license and that can inspect these buildings, especially if we're paying them to do it. Now, whether or not we have any recourse with anybody, I mean, we've got to have it done, so it is what it is. But I think we still need to pursue those avenues. If there's a termite bond, next meeting, we need to find out if there's anything we can do about it.
I agree.
From what I understand.
If it's that bad, you're having to replace floors. I mean, if it's that bad, then if they're inspecting it every year, it seems like somebody would have called that.
Now, I don't
Before
think that
now.
this was an active,
No.
this
Yeah.
is not an active termite issue.
This was not a termite inspection, it was a structural inspection, so this was not done by a termite expert, but we ought to get the termite bondholder in there to inspect and give us a report for sure.
Okay.
The floor drooping was what brought the attention in the first
Sure.
place. It wasn't the termite. It's just suspected that over from 1880, that termite damage may have been something that affected the structural integrity of those large joists.
Okay, so we said it's a structural problem while the inspection was initiated. But the termite group was coming out annually to check for termites.
Should be. Yep, and I can check to make sure when those, I know that the termite bonds are there. I can't tell you today exactly when the last time that each one was inspected according to those.
I don't think it really matters when they inspect. If you have a bond or a contract with a termite company, it's their duty to come out and check. So that kind of, I mean, well, I'm not really worried about that. My thing is if we found active termites, then that's whenever, I've bought property before that had active termites after I had my own inspection done. Termite company missed it. My inspector found it. Termite company's held liable because they signed off saying it was free and clear. So, I mean, so they should have some ante in, I guess, as far as possible repairs. If not, I know, like I said, we've got to have it done, but we need to check all of our buildings if they're missing it. You know. Anyway.
But and if it's that, if it's that bad, I mean, anybody, and there's some of us in real estate and other things too, but I mean, anytime you have that done, I've never had a termite inspector go into our house. If it's that bad, if it's been done within the last year, somebody was said, hey, you don't have active termites, but the floor is caving in. You know, you really need to look at replacing that beam. Again, if they didn't say that, we need to replace our termite company, right? So let's just find out what happened and how we figured it out. It sounds like termites, then it sounds like old damage, and it sounds like we have inspections, it sounds like maybe not. So let's just find out on those buildings when the last inspection was, who we're using. If we need to switch companies, we need to switch companies.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Ms. Scarborough.
Good evening.
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 I have a list of budget expenditures for our three main ESSER grants or CARES grants that we've received over the last several years. The first one on the slide here is ESSER 1, or the CARES Act, that we were initially awarded, I think, in March of 2020, somewhere along those lines, or I'm sorry, that following spring after COVID hit. This grant we use primarily to pay salaries and benefits for our staff. We had a QBE reduction that year of about 11%. We ended up getting it back, but we had already allocated the funds for that. And that grant is essentially spent out. We're down to $8.70 in that particular grant, so it's done. Part of the monies went towards proportionate share for private schools. The remaining two the big grants that I have on the next couple of slides, did not include proportionate share. The state went towards, instead of filtering that through school systems, they began to just contact, I should say, the private schools themselves about their applying for those funds. So we didn't have to do that with ESSER 2 or ESSER 3, but we did have to provide a proportionate share to private schools that wanted to participate in CARES 1. The second page has the ESSER 2 grant. That grant closes in September of 2023, and it was a grant allocation of $14,361,535. The items listed are the items that the assistant superintendents and other folks on our committee had recommended that we propose to put in the grant. So those are all the things that are currently in ESSER 2. We've expended about 56.7% of that grant as of March 31st, with 43% of the grant remaining to be spent. The biggest, I think, expenditure in this was mostly the Chromebooks that we put in, Chromebooks and carts from last year, and Promethean panels, some of the technology pieces to help with distance learning and so forth. The last two pages are our largest grant, ESSER 3 ARP, which was a $32 million grant. We actually have a budget meeting tomorrow because we've added some requests from a number of our committee members about things that we checked on about allowability and those kinds of things. We're meeting tomorrow to figure out exactly what we need to put in there. Currently, with all of those items added in, we're over budget by about $6 million. However, Ms. Cody and I will be looking at the funds that we've expended for this year. For example, we had 33 parapros that we had funded for FY22. However, we didn't fill all those slots, and a number of parapros came and went, those kinds of things. So we didn't expend all the funds in all the areas that we had designated for FY22. Most of the items in here, unless otherwise designated, were budgeted out for 3 years. I also budgeted on the high side because I wasn't terribly sure what everybody's salary might be. So we'll be able to clean that up a little bit this year, looking at how much we actually did spend on those items. So I don't foresee that we wouldn't be able to pull that $6 million out and cover any of the additional pieces that people have requested to be part of this grant. If there was anything specific.
Any questions, or I just wanted to let you see, there's been a lot of talk about our CARES Act funds, and I wanted to let you see exactly what we're doing with it. And of course, we have brought these to you over the years. So.
This is just a general item listed on page 2, federal indirect costs. What's an example of something like that, do you know?
That is a rate that is calculated by the feds that the general fund can charge a federal grant for admin type related costs.
Okay. Thank you.
So we shift that. Any other questions from Scarborough? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like we're down to Mr. Waters.
Oh, skip Ms. Green.
Oh, I skipped Green. Sorry. Skipped Ms. Green. Thank you. I even have my glasses on.
Squeezing that apple, but.
This is just a update on our one-to-one initiative. Obviously, you all know that we already have enough devices for each student to have one, but what we were planning to do is offer high school students the opportunity to check the devices out and take them home, and so that the one device follows them for the entire year and then check it back in. So this initiative is specifically for high school students only. They'd still sign the acceptable use agreement as well as our Chromebook loan agreement that they already signed in place. Wi-Fi would not be provided through this initiative, and so families would be responsible for their own Wi-Fi at home. And then there's a timeline posted for rollout. So we would inform families now, going into the end of the year, all the devices that we currently have will be inventoried and refreshed so that we could then do student checkout in July and then student check-in, obviously. And we'd have a midpoint because some of them were purchased obviously with federal funds. So for auditing purposes, we do a check-in midpoint with IT to make sure, and schools to make sure that all the devices are accounted for.
Do we have a process for, I don't know what you call it, reviewing the Chromebooks when they come back in for browsing history? And I know they signed the acceptable use policy, but how do we monitor that? If
Yes.
it's not on our network, how do we monitor it?
Well, I'll let Bob speak to that specifically, but we do actually have a way to monitor everything that they do on the device.
Okay.
I mean, I pull student browse history now in the event that we're doing an investigation
Okay.
for discipline purposes. But if you needed more technical information.
Is it based on their login or something when they come back? Or?
We, as far as monitoring what they're looking at, or
Right.
yes, we have what's called a cloud filter.
Okay.
And no matter where they take that Chromebook, and if they log in, you can only log in as a Glen County student on the device, and it's filtered just as if they were
You were here, okay.
in the building.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Which is why the other day I asked Dr. Green, if my daughter has her own device, why do we have to use ours? And that's the reason,
Right.
because we can filter everything. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Also, the students are agreeing, are the parents agreeing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Being held responsible because these are minors, okay.
So with the Chromebooks, as far as like our students' classroom books, are those digitized where they could have everything on their, in other words, get rid of the books as well, and they won't carry their 50-pound bags around? Is there any way to?
The intent is to have a digital version, a license that students could use, but that would be, they could use that even if they didn't have the Chromebooks logging in through the World Wide Web.
Right.
But yes,
So they have
absolutely.
access to
So
other books?
Our thought process is that we would reduce the number of books that we need to purchase and just purchase licenses or use agreements through textbook companies for our high school students, because we are planning to upgrade and do an adoption of textbooks for our accountability areas. Right now, the most recent updates for textbooks only happen in AP courses.
Right.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
We're still looking at the insurance, how we would do insurance, how we're gonna do damage stuff. And so we'll bring it to you at next month's board meeting, once we figure out how we wanna do the insurance, which would be the cost.
I like it. I mean, I can't wait till we can eventually push it down to middle school, because that was the biggest thing I heard about is, and then with my daughter carrying a 50-pound bag around all day. I mean, these kids, we don't have lockers anymore, so they're stuck carrying them. So I think this is good way to slowly work.
Let's slow down a
maybe
little bit.
down.
That's good. I want to see this work first.
That's what I just said, this is a good, good
I am a
pilot
doubtful
scene.
person here, so I want to see it work.
It'll work.
I agree, thank you.
It'll work.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Now, Coach Waters.
Dr. Spence. Just two things tonight. One is the renewal of the Coca-Cola or the soft drink proposal. We sent the invitation out, and unfortunately, no one responded except for Coca-Cola. So we would ask the board to approve the Coca-Cola soft drink services from July 2022 through June 2027, which is common to do a 5-year deal with them. So I'm just asking for a renewal of that contract. I think all of our principals and our administrators enjoy working with the good folks over at Coca-Cola. Secondly is the new gym at Glen Academy. Mr. Blackerby and Mr. Blackstone and I met with various coaches at Glen Academy to meet with them and just basically see what kind of weight room equipment they would like in the new auxiliary gym. This will not be a football weight room. This would be a weight room for wrestling, baseball, basketball, volleyball, things of that nature. So we got a list from all of those coaches, and it totaled $62,594, and we would like to ask the board to award the bid to ProMaxim out of Houston, who we have done business with before, and they're an excellent weight equipment company.
Any questions for Mr. Waters?
Does that include mats and everything, or is that something we have to purchase up?
Total install. And they install everything for us.
So are you separating the football team, have their own gym, and then everybody else have theirs?
Certainly
They've
anybody
always
can
had-
still.
They've had it off limits. Locker room, since we built that down the street here. It's been off limits to most other
And
athletes.
we've
Just so you know.
we've said over and over and over again that we don't want to do that.
That's
So,
right.
I would not be in favor of,
We fixed the problem by putting
In the face.
the rest of them in the wood gym, which is wasn't a great solution either, so I'm glad we're doing this finally. Not to answer the question for you, but.
you knew what I was asking, that's all right, good, I'll take it.
Okay. Thank you.
And Ms. Daniel?
Good evening.
Evening.
I have a couple of things. One is the current waivers that we're operating under through COVID, as far as meals at no charge, that waiver is ending for next school year, and it ends at the end of June. So starting July, we'll go back to our normal operating procedures. We're going to be releasing a free and reduced application, and that can't be released until July the 1st. July the 1st, and we can start processing those applications. Also, at this point, typically when we start the school year back, students who were free and reduced the year before will start out in a grace period. So they would come back to school based on what their eligibility was the previous year. But at this point, there's no grace period. So all children that start back to school on the first day would be full paid unless they process an application either online or in person, an open house, or some way of getting that application. They would come back at the full paid status. The only other way around that is our students who are direct certified. If they come through on the DC list and we're able to determine they're receiving SNAP, TANF, homeless migrant, or foster, they would be set to a free status. All other students would come in at a paid status. So it's going to be a big task for us to try to get as many applications processed before the first day of school. Because of that, we've evaluated our meal prices, so we're proposing our meal prices for elementary students and middle school students at the paid status be $2.50, and the reduced price would still be 40 cents. We will still operate under Provision 2. The P2 for breakfast is at no charge, so all of our students will still eat breakfast at no charge. Our lunch will be paid. And because we're 50% or more free or reduced, we will still be able to serve at-risk snack, after-school snack at no charge. So we're really just looking at breakfast cost. We didn't recommend an change on adult milk pricing. It's been $2.50 for breakfast and $4 for lunch. And then all visitors, we're looking at our special event meals to make sure we're covering plate costs, $3 for breakfast and $5 for lunch and $2 for snack. Our current plate cost right now across the district is $2.49. So we're it would take $2.50 to cover it if we were paid right now. We also sent out a survey to districts in our RESA about what they're charging for next year. Most of those came in at $2.50 for lunch. Effingham came in at $2.75, and Savannah's going to be charging $3 for lunch. So there were like a couple that were $2.25, but the majority are looking at $2.50 for next year. So that's the proposal for meal prices for 22-23. In addition to that, the parent pickup waiver, where students have been driving by picking up meals in the summer, we can operate under that program for June, but July we would not be able to operate that. So our current summer plan is to operate the drive-by meal service on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 of our schools. But we can't do the drive-by pickup, parent pickup, or multiple meal packets after the end of June. Any questions on meal prices? Okay.
Keep on going to the pizza.
So we have 3 bids. Our Bullseye Smart Mouth single serve pizza, we're asking to renew with them. Obviously that cost, that we had 2 bids come in, Williams Institutional Foods and Bullseye Brand, and then the total price will be based on participation. Those are our little single serve pizzas that we do at our high school, Brunswick High and GA. And then the next is our produce vendor. The Garden, I'm proposing that the Garden win that bid. They're out of Jacksonville, Florida, and you'll notice the total on that bid is only $188,000, but because we purchased the majority of our fresh produce with our DOD funds, our USDA DOD funds. So we have $350,000 of DOD funds that we will be using to purchase from the Garden. They're also an approved vendor with DOD for next school year. And then our final bid is our commodity processing bid. What we did across the state is we have 3 major commodity processing bids. That's where I buy bulk products, USDA, and then we turn that into our peanuts to a peanut butter and jelly Uncrustable, or chicken, whole pounds of chicken to chicken.
That's what I was talking about the other day, sorry.
Yes.
That's what I was telling you.
So-
Why do we bulk peanuts?
Yeah. So we've sent our chicken to Rich Chick Chicken for them to turn our USDA chicken into our chicken patties and our chicken products. Made Right is going to turn our beef, USDA beef, pounds into our 100% beef patty for next year. And then Brookwood Farms is our barbecue for pork, peanuts, Smuckers, and then JTM, they make a lot of our cheese sauce for our tacos and beef products for like taco meat and things like that. So we are actually going to piggyback on Fayette County's bid for that. Districts piggybacking allows us to get a better price throughout other districts for those items. So Fayette County is holding that bid right now.
So no pink slime?
No. No.
All right, any questions for Ms. Daniel?
I know we've used Smart Mouth in the recent years. These other vendors, is that something you're familiar with?
Well, the vendor that I used to use is no longer in the business. They didn't respond, and the only other person that responded was Williams Institutional Foods, and you'll see the difference in cost was tremendous.
Right.
But-
No, well, I'm talking about these other contracts that you're talking about, getting the bids on. The Garden, and then the way you're working this agreement, commodities agreement.
Mhm.
Is that a new process for us, or is that something you've been doing?
Actually, we've been doing commodity processing, but through our new procurement guidelines, we have to bring the commodity. I don't know that the commodity bid has been brought, the piggyback bids have been brought to the board, and that's something Ms. Saunders and I talked about. It needed to come before the board, but we have been doing this processing the Maid-Rite is our only new vendor for next year.
Okay. I just wondered if there have been any sort of supply chain issues with these vendors that we're looking at renewing for next year.
This is what brings security to that. So districts across the state have said, if I processed I send my chicken to Rich Chicken, they make the chicken patty, then that is allotted to us. That's our product. So I talked to the Fulton County director. She did not do that, and so she had a hard time getting those products. So this is actually a secure way for us to get the products.
All right. What about the garden? Have we had experience with them?
The garden was, we processed with them 2 years ago. We purchased from them 2 years ago. We did not purchase from them this past year. We did document several concerns with our vendor from this year for produce. So I actually reached out to DOD to see if the garden could be approved for DOD, because we don't want two separate produce vendors.
Sure.
So this allowed, since they can provide our DOD product, then we went to them for our purchasing product, so we can use the same vendor. So it eliminates deliveries coming to the school too.
Okay. And so we feel a little more secure about going with the garden. All right. Thank you.
And that wasn't just a concern for Glen County, that changing that vendor.
Sure. All right. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Swartz.
Just got two quick items for us tonight. First one is declare, what do we have there, 20 interactive flat panels. We've replaced all of them in the district with the Promethean panels, and these are new lines, 2 different models, and 7 of the older version 6 Promethean panels. I would request that the school board let us declare those surplus, and we could sell them on the open market or bid them out or whatever we want to do. Get a little bit of money back from them. The new lines were originally put in the Wolf Street building many years ago, and the version 6, we're on version 7 of the Promethean panels now. So,
Any questions there? Security cameras.
next item up for discussion is our renewal annual access control and surveillance cameras. We have these all throughout the district. The access control is for the doors. Security cameras, we have them at every school, every facility, including the stadium, warehouse, Golden Owls Career Academy. With this, it pays for our software upgrades on all of our digital video recorders where we save the video. Allows us to stay current and get the latest upgrades with all the new functionality and features. Also includes repair of broken and damaged hardware that is not under factory warranty. And they come out and do periodic preventive maintenance, such as pulling the domes off the cameras, cleaning them out. And our SROs at all the schools monitor the cameras. The principals do too. And if they see anything like video loss or the image is grainy or not clear, they come out and adjust that and fix that for us too. They have a staff here that pretty much stays in Glen County for us, and that's part of this. That's what it does. So I have somebody that I could get a hold of instantly and get things fixed and corrected for us.
Any questions for Mr. Swartz?
Does this cover, I don't think it does, does this cover the bus cameras as well, or that sort of something we
No,
handle
sir.
differently? We
That's
have
a
issues
totally
with those.
different system. Just buildings and facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Swartz.
Yes, sir.
How often do we monitor those cameras on the buses to make sure they're working? I know if you have an SRO sitting in front of the cameras at a school, you've got 32 images you can review and one's out, then obviously that's a red flag. But how often do we look at the ones at the bus yard to make sure they're recording? I know it's a lot of buses and a big job.
Because it's a totally different system, you'd probably have to ask the director of
Dwayne,
transportation.
can you answer that, Dan?
I think so. The cameras now speak to a system basically that
reports, and something that we are looking at, that reports back whether or not there are problems with the cameras
Okay.
prior to viewing, instead of being reactive, it's a proactive approach.
Don't the bus drivers get on the bus and there's a light that says it's working, it's red or green?
That's also
Yeah.
another indicator.
Okay.
And then, of course, if anybody views a video and they see a problem, then that's the reactive approach. But
Right.
that happens as well. And between all of those things, it kind of keeps it pretty good.
Okay, thank you. So somebody gets notified if a camera's offline proactively without us having a fight and trying to view the image and there's no image or no video. Is that correct?
Should be.
Okay.
It may be something that we may be looking at. I'm not sure exactly where our transportation department is as far as that feature is concerned.
Right.
But if it's not happening, then it's something that's being looked at for future issues.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. That is all I have, Mr. Manson.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Anybody have any questions or reviews on anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel. Motion by Ms. Sams, second by Ms. Givens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. 6:21, Ms. Pearl. back into open session.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Gibbons,
Second.
second by Mr. Halsey. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McDade, second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous at 8:08.
8:05.